the impact of your anger. You can go back, you can say, I'm sorry, you can recover from your moment of your temper tantrum. But all of that which you do in anger, the words you speak, the actions you do, are like nails in the fence of people's lives. And so even though you may go back and you may apologize and make amends and do whatever you need to do to metaphorically pull these nails out, the impact is still there. The holes are still there. And I love that story because a lot of times we really think that, oh, you know, if I just say the right thing, do the right thing, it's somehow going to undo what I've already done. And it helps. As anyone who's ever been hurt knows, if someone genuinely apologizes, it certainly melts our heart. It certainly makes us want to forgive them. But in a lot of cases, that impact is still there. And so if we've lost people, if we haven't just hurt them, but we've actually hurt them so badly that we've lost them, I don't know that you're going to get them back. I'd love to say that you will. It depends who they are. If they're people who are deeply committed to a spiritual path, people working on their own forgiveness, then you've got a better chance. But that may not be the case. You may be on a spiritual path. You may be looking to make amends and overcome your foolishness and bring them back, but that doesn't mean they are. Maybe they're holding grudges. Maybe they've decided you hurt them too much. We don't know. But our job is two things. Number one, to do the best we can. It means apologize. It means do whatever you can to make amends. Own your foolishness. Own your actions. Don't go to them and say things like, I'm really sorry that you felt hurt at what I did. That's the easiest, half-baked apology. That's the, I'm good, but you took things in the wrong way. I'm sorry you had such a bad reaction to what I did. A real apology, whether you meant something or not, has to come from the heart. And even if you didn't mean to, even if it wasn't in foolishness, nonetheless, we're able on some level to connect through compassion with the one who has been hurt. And if we're not, you're not trying hard enough. So really, really try to connect with the one you've hurt and make amends from that place. And then you have to just leave the rest in God's hands. Maybe they'll forgive you and they'll come back into your life. Maybe they won't. There also may be cases where people have passed on. I mean, there's all sorts of other factors that may not bring people back into our lives. But that brings us to the second point, which is we need to make sure not to do it again. So we can't rewind. We can't redo our life, but we can start fresh now. We can make sure not to lose people we have now. And if you're feeling lonely, as the questioner said, I feel lonely, I've lost people. Well, open your heart to the people you have. Open your heart to the people around you. Rather than pining for that which is gone, open your heart to what you do have. And slowly, slowly, maybe it'll bring the people from the past back. I have faith. I have great faith in the power of love, the power of connection, to really serve as a magnet. And so if you do that, who knows, maybe it'll bring them back. But if not, at least it'll also attract new people. People in your life today. Puja Swamiji always says, whenever you wake up, it's morning. And so it's not about that which I did and how can I rewrite history, but how can I wake up today? How can I understand what made me act foolishly? Because a lot of times we may say, oh my God, I can't believe I acted with such anger, such jealousy, such ego. I wish I could redo it. I'm so sorry. But the truth is, we may be really sorry. But if we haven't changed, we're going to do it all over again, given the right circumstances. And that's not something that feels good inside, because we all want to feel like I'm the right one, I do the right things. But if we know I acted out of jealousy, out of anger, out of greed, out of lust, out of ego, and I'm feeling really sorry for it, well, a really important thing to do is to ask ourselves, have I done something to overcome my greed, my lust, my ego? Because if not, I may get those people back or I may get new people, but I'm going to blow it again. Because the thing with these aspects of humanity is until you look at them, until you address them, until you deal with them, they're going to keep coming back. And so that's a very important aspect also. And if you want to give yourself a little bit of a head start in getting back people you've hurt, a really good way to do that is to show them how you're working on the part of you that made you lose them. So if it was anger, did you yell one time too many? Did you lose your temper one time too many? Did you say things that were mean and inappropriate and hurtful one time too many? Well, along with the apology, if you really want to get them back, you need to show them that you're doing something to change. And recognizing that it was foolish is a great start. That's a great start, because normally most people think, well, I'm okay, but the problem is you. If you just had come home on time, I wouldn't have been angry. If you just cooked a better meal, I wouldn't be angry. If you cleaned up your room and got good grades and treated me the right way, I wouldn't be angry. So that's what we're usually really good at, is sorry I got angry, but you know, if you just were talking the right way, acting the right way, living the right way, I wouldn't have had to get angry. And that's not a very safe situation to walk back into if you've been on the brunt of anger. Because what we know is it's just a matter of time before you get angry at me again. It's just a matter of time before you yell or hit or insult again. The question becomes, how can I realize that regardless of whether you clean up your room, regardless of if you're on time, regardless of the grades you get, regardless of whether you dance or sing according to my tune, I don't have to get angry. That's in my hands. There is no excuse for insulting people, hurting people, hitting people, for sure. There really is just no excuse for any of that. And the more we try to blame other people or blame situations, the less safe we are for people to come back to. Because it means, given the right situation, you'll do the exact same thing again. The only way out of the foolishness is to realize my anger is only in my control. The situation is not. What people around me do is not in my control. I only have control of myself. And that's the way to really show that you're someone worth coming back to. That you've really recognized that the problem is you. Not that you're a bad person. We all have problems. We all act in ways that we later regret. We all in some way end up at some point in some circumstances slaves to our anger, our ego, or our fear, or our desires, or our greed, or whatever it may be, our stress. But if you've really hurt people through that, you need to show that you're taking back control into the self and realizing that no situation gives you the right to turn around and hurt someone you love. And when you realize that, then you really begin the path of transformation. That whether it's bringing back the ones you hurt or just making sure you don't hurt again, in either case, you become a love magnet. You know, love magnets are those who actually exude love. That's what the magnetic pull is. If I'm exuding it, I'm going to bring it back toward me. And in order to do that, I have to not let situations give me an excuse to hurt you. And so that's the most important first step. And the rest, of course, is in God's hands. Yes?
What about the other person that is maybe on a spiritual path and trying to practice forgiveness and compassion towards the person who is angry and
Yeah.
how to show him in the time of the anger
That you're compassionate for him.
and how to practice that?
Yeah, okay. So this is a good question. Let's say you're on a spiritual path. You're in a situation where someone is speaking to you out of anger, is treating you with anger, is hurting you. How do you practice compassion for that person in that circumstance? Well, the first and most important thing you do is actually make sure that you're physically safe. Because being on a spiritual path does not mean that you become a doormat for the world. And that's a really important thing to remember. Just because I'm spiritual doesn't mean I should let you abuse me. Because that same divine that lives within you, that my compassion is working to see and to recognize in you, also lives in me. That same divinity I'm working to recognize in you also lives in me. And so the same compassion that I'm working to feel for you, I also have to have for me. Which means that we first need to make sure that we are physically safe. It is not a matter of how can I sit here and allow myself to be abused because I'm on a spiritual path. First and foremost, make sure you're safe. The human life is a gift, the human body is a temple. And in the same way that if someone came and started throwing, eggs or tomatoes on your place of worship, on something that's sacred to you, that you'd stop them. In the same way, someone harming, vandalizing, abusing a house of worship, holy books, holy statues, whatever they may be. Well, your body is living, breathing divinity. So that's the first step. But then, if you're physically safe, and it's just that someone is in the throes of their own stuff, their own anger, their own struggle, how do you have compassion for that? Well, the first piece is recognize it's not about you. For most of us, what happens is we take everything very personally. So someone insults us, someone yells at us, and we take it personally. And we think either, how dare you? Who the hell do you think you are? Right? So they insult us, we insult them, and things degenerate from there. Or we take it personally as a victim of that. And we really take it in. Oh my God. And it hurts. In both cases, it's important to remember this isn't actually about me. This is about them. It's like that example that we give so frequently about the mad dog that bites you when you walk through the park, right? If you're walking through a park and suddenly a mad dog rushes out and bites your leg, you're not going to chase it down the street and try to bite it back. You're also not going to need to go into therapy because you're having such a hard time processing internally the fact that you were bit by a dog. You're not going to need to go to your therapists and talk about, why me? I'm a bite-worthy person. I deserved it. I'm bad. You're going to understand. I was just in the wrong place at the wrong time. And you're going to understand that dog is sick. When we say mad dog, the mad part is not the mad that's a synonym for angry. It's not something upset the dog. Mad, literally in that circumstance, means they are sick. They have rabies. That's why they bite. It's not that the dog woke up in the morning and said, I know what I'm going to do. I'm going to lie in wait for you, and that nice lady, she'll come. The dog was just sick. And so when the people in our lives act inappropriately, are in the throes of something that's very inappropriate, it's very important to actually think about it in a very similar way, which is, it's not about me. This person is in a state of dis-ease, lack of ease, which is why they're treating me like this, why they're responding like this, why they're doing that. If they were in a state of ease, a state of peace, a state of joy, they would treat me with joy and peace and love. People who are happy are great to be around. People who are in peace are great to be around because that's what they exude. That's what you feel in their presence. People who make others miserable are because they are miserable. That's what they're manufacturing inside. And so if that misery is overflowing onto you, you can be very sure that there's an overabundance of it being produced inside. And so we understand that. And we don't take it personally. And then we delve deeper for that level of compassion. Can we really understand the misery that that person must be going through, that's making so much of it spill out over onto me? The pain that person must be in. It's like if you touch the forehead of someone with a fever, or you touch the hand of someone with a fever, it's hot, right? That's how moms always say, oh, you've got a fever, you're warm. Well, that's because the body is generating heat. And you can feel it it's literally overflowing out from the inside into the skin. Sometimes you notice when you've got a fever, you lie down to go to sleep and you can literally feel that your breath is hot, and it starts to actually make your face hot as you breathe because your breath is so hot. So that which is being produced inside is coming out. And whether it's heat in a fever, whether it's misery, anger, pain, that's what I'm producing. And so try to drop into that with that person. It doesn't mean you should also experience pain, but can you experience the being in there, the divine being in there who's suffering? It helps also, another thing that works is if you can make up a story. If you happen to know their story, that's great. But if you don't, make one up. So someone comes into the office, let's say, a colleague, coworker, and is just super obnoxious, super rude, super insulting, maybe steals your work, maybe sabotages you. On the one hand, we respond with, where did you come from? We feel hurt, we feel angry. But it really helps if you can make up a story. I mean, you know that they're going through something. If they were manufacturing happiness, that happiness would overflow. If they were manufacturing peace, that peace would overflow. And so if what's overflowing is misery, that's what's being produced. So give yourself a story. Is she getting divorced? Is a loved one dying? Has she just lost a loved one? Is she going through a health scare? What is it? Tell yourself a story. I do this all the time. You've got to let your creative writing juices flow. And it doesn't matter whether it's true or not, because the truth is we know they have a story. We know there is a story behind it. So whether you're making up the right story or not doesn't matter. We know there is a story. We know there is something that has caused the pain in that person. Today, yesterday, 20 years ago. That is making them move through the world like this. If you know the story, it helps you with compassion. If you don't know the story, make one up. So just imagine. Imagine that she just got a call. Her best friend was killed in a car accident, right? Passed away yesterday. Left 2 young children. She's the godmother. Oh my God, now she has to take care of 2 young children. Well, she doesn't make enough barely to take care of herself. You know that, you're getting the same salary. Now she's panicked. How am I going to take care of 2 children? So suddenly her coming in and stealing your work starts to begin to make a little bit of sense. Consciously or unconsciously, here she is trying to figure out how she's going to get some extra income. Suddenly her stress, her panic, her sadness begins to make sense. Or go 30 years ago. What she went through as a child. And again, if you don't know it, make it up. Because we've all got stories. And the stories, the real ones and the not real ones, really help us. Help us feel that compassion for people, because then we know, there's something beyond just the rude thing they've said, the rude thing they've done, the moment of their anger, the moment of their outburst. And really try to see that whole being. And then if you can go deeper, see the divine in them. Can you see this divine spark in them that is just being suffocated with meanness and I-ness and ego-ness and story and drama and identity and the pain that's causing them? And work on that. But make sure simultaneously that you are safe. Because understanding that the dog is sick doesn't mean that you take that walk through the park again. Doesn't mean you don't get out of there as quickly as you can and get to a hospital and bandage your leg. So just make sure that you're also having compassion for yourself. Okay. Yes. Yes.
Does the Dharma can die or perish? And when we see Mahatma Gandhi and Bhagavad Gita, does the Bhagavad Gita justify violence to restore or preserve the Dharma?
Mm-hmm. So the first part of the question, I didn't understand fully. Can the Dharma die or perish, did you say? Is that what you said?
Yeah, or disappear?
Okay. Can the Dharma die or perish? No. The Dharma itself cannot, but if all of those who are living it choose to stop living it, then there would no longer be an embodiment of it. But Dharma, remember, it's a word that we've yet to come up with a good English translation, but it's everything ranging from the way, the right path. But it's not just that. It's more than that. So for example, the Dharma of fire is to burn. The Dharma of water is to wet. So you wouldn't so much just say, oh, well, that's the right thing for fire to do. That's just what fire does. That's what fire is. And so Dharma also includes just the nature of who we are and living according to it. So if fire decided instead of burning, it was going to start to go drip, drip, drip like water, A, it wouldn't work. It wouldn't be successful. It wouldn't be functional. You could no longer cook your meals on it. It also would never be able to go drip, drip, drip like water. But it wouldn't be living its Dharma. So when we talk about Dharma, remember, we're not just talking about human beings. The difference is humans may be, I don't want to say they definitely are, but they may be the only species that consciously makes decisions to live according to their Dharma or not. And so in humans, the Dharma would only disappear temporarily if the people living Dharma chose to stop living Dharma. But this is where in the Bhagavad Gita, Lord Krishna says so beautifully, whenever darkness is winning out over light, whenever adharma, lack of Dharma, is winning out over Dharma, I incarnate, I come onto earth to restore the Dharma. And this is where in our lives, when we look around and we see things that feel like darkness in the outer world, hunger, war, crime, environmental destruction, pain, suffering, misery, depression. Every one of us is an embodiment of the divine. It's not a matter of, oh my God, where is Lord Krishna and why has he not come back? It's a matter of, how can I find that spark of Lord Krishna within me, of the divine? And it doesn't matter your religion. It doesn't matter whether that spark comes with the name and the form of Krishna, or Jesus, or Buddha. It doesn't matter. But what matters is, where is that within me so that I can bring light to darkness? Because that's what all of our Dharma is. We're not victims. We are active participants in the creation of the world, not just in living the world. It's not like you walk onto a set that's already been created and you just have to work with what's there. We actually are script writers, producers, directors, set designers, makeup artists, costume artists, and the actor. We're all of it. Sure, pieces of it were there before we got there. That's what we talk about, our karma, our past karma. Certain costumes we can squeeze into, certain ones we can't. Certain roles we can play given who we are and the abilities that we have, certain ones we can't. Some of us can walk out there and play the role of the opera singer, some of us can't. Some can walk out, play the role of the dancer, some can't. So we all have different roles to an extent that we can play. Certain ones that fit, certain ones that are in alignment with that individual aspect of Dharma. But every one of us, there's individual Dharma and universal Dharma. And universal Dharma is bring light to the darkness. There is no one exempt from that. There is no one who can say, that's your Dharma, not mine. Because there is no one in whom that divine does not reside. And so if the divine is the one incarnating in form to bring back light to the darkness, Dharma to the adharma, we are the ones through whom, in whom, as whom the divine is incarnating. And so we are the ones who have to bring that light. Different ways, different forms. But that every one of us is supposed to do. So the Dharma lives with us, as us, through us. Or we die. It's not so much a matter of the Dharma dying, but we die. Our bodies may still be alive. The heart may still be beating. But if we're not living in tune and in alignment with who we are, we die to what we were born to live. Doesn't mean you can't go through the motions. Doesn't mean that you can't eat, drink, and be merry, but not deeply merry. Not ever merry. You can get sort of the merriment that a pizza's going to give, or, a party's going to give. Sensory pleasures. But we die to that which ultimately holds us together. It's said Dharma is that which protects us, which holds us together. That's another aspect of the actual Sanskrit definition of Dharma, the etymology of Dharma. That which protects, that which holds together. And so when we live our Dharma, we are held together, we are protected, and we serve as that which holds together and protects society. Lastly, the violence aspect. And it's an interesting point. It comes up a lot, as you can imagine, because ahimsa, or nonviolence, is of course a core, fundamental aspect of living a righteous life. It is the number one, the first of the yamas, the do's and don'ts of yoga. Right? Patanjali gave us 8 limbs of yoga. They begin with the yamas and the niyamas. Do's and don'ts. Number 1, nonviolence. So So how do we reconcile a commitment to nonviolence with this scriptural teaching when Lord Krishna says, stand up and fight, this is your Dharma? Well, we have to remember that nothing exists in a vacuum. And so, for example, has anyone here ever taken antibiotics? Raise your hand if you've ever taken antibiotics. Okay. Raise your hand if you haven't taken antibiotics, but you've taken some natural immune system strengthener. So you've taken echinacea, you've taken turmeric, you've taken something else. Raise your hand if you've taken any of those. Okay, so coming together, pretty much everybody has taken something. Well, on some level, you've committed genocide. All the bacteria that lived in you, that those antibiotics killed, whether they were the pharmaceutical kind or the natural kind, every time you've got a sore throat, a stuffy nose, an ear infection, bacterial or viral, either way, and you take something that helps you overcome that kills the bacteria. Anybody ever use antibacterial sanitizing, right? Hand stuff? So there you go, genocide. Now, I say this not to make light of actual genocide, but to help us understand that literally every minute of our lives, we're actually committing violence. But we're committing violence with an awareness that it's all in the service of a greater good. If I let the strep bacteria or the staph bacteria win, I lose.
No, you join God. I'm sorry, Sadhvi.
Yeah, no, hang on.
You join God and you don't lose. You join God.
Okay, hang on. No, that's okay. We'll come back to it. We're actually also running out of time, so I'm going to try to bring it up quickly, but we can go into more detail tomorrow. So yes, of course, when you die, you go back to God. But we've been given human life as a gift. Now, yes, there are religious traditions. Absolutely, there are religious traditions that say, thou shalt not do anything to treat yourself. There are religious traditions that are against any kind of medicine, natural or pharmaceutical, that are against surgery. Aside from those, the rest of us are living and doing whatever we need to do that feels comfortable within our health tradition to keep our physical bodies alive and strong as long as we can. And that actually is a mandate given to us by God in the scriptures, is to take care of this body. It's a temple. And so, yeah, we could go into a very long debate. Prayer, of course, is one way, but we've got a lot of other ways. And so traditions of healing, faith healers, energy healers, herbal healers, shamanic healers, indigenous healers, these are core and fundamental aspects of our oldest traditions. And so we move forward with the assumption that staying alive and staying healthy is good, as long as our life can be used to benefit others. If our life is a waste, if our life is harming others, then absolutely you could make an argument that the bacteria should live and you should die. But if through your life you are bringing light, healing to anyone or anything in any way, we should do whatever we can within whatever reason works for our tradition of health to stay alive and to stay strong. But I mentioned this lastly, and trying to wrap it up as quickly but fully as possible, is that violence is something that gets committed constantly. Step on the grass, you're killing insects. Take medicine that's antibacterial, you're killing bacteria. Even those of us who are staunch vegetarians and vegans, we're killing spinach leaves. Something is being killed.
It's not intentional.
Absolutely. If it's okay, let me finish with this. That's okay. And I say this very specifically because as that which needs to be spoken flows through me, it works a lot more easily if I can actually just sort of let it flow through, and then I'll be absolutely open to any other questions on it. It just doesn't work so well in the debate. Intention, of course, is crucial on every level. And we can look at that tomorrow. But for right now, when we're talking about Dharma and Dharma for violence, when I put alcohol on a cut, if I've gotten cut and I'm bleeding, and I get an alcohol swab, or I even get soap and water to wash it off, I'm killing bacteria intentionally. I don't want an infection in my body. I'm doing that purposely because I know it's important to stay healthy. The last thing I want is to get an infection that's going to ravage my body. So you get cut, you're bleeding, we wash it, we bandage it, we keep it clean so that we don't get an infection. It's intentional. The violence that is wrought against beings in the name of Dharma is that which has to be looked at in a bigger picture. I am one who is never in favor of it. I am, on a personal level, vehemently against capital punishment. Staunch vegans, staunch animal rights activists, staunch organic and fair trade, I mean, all of that. And if I was walking down the street and someone attacked me or attacked someone I was with, or I saw someone attack a helpless person or a child, and I couldn't get them off that person through my words, through my actions, if I didn't happen to have a paint gun with me or a water balloon with me that would non-violently stun them into letting go, but I did happen to have a baseball bat with me for some reason, or I had a purse with me that was strong, or I had a mobile phone, I would whack them on the back or on the head or whatever I needed to do to get them to let go of that child or that elderly person. I would do that. Because and this is, remember, this is a decision that we all have to make for ourselves. We have courts that give us decisions legally. We have scriptures that give us decisions scripturally. But how we're going to implement that? Chances are none of us is going to find ourselves on a battlefield in a chariot, facing our family with bows and arrows on the other side. That's just very likely not a specific scenario that any of us in this room is going to encounter in our life. But we're going to have our own wars. We're going to have our own battles. We're going to have our own questions of what our Dharma is. And that's why we have to develop this internal sense, because there's not a scriptural example and situation for everything we're going to encounter. And just as we find a scriptural situation on a battlefield where God in the form of Lord Krishna says fight, so we find scriptural examples and situations of taking care of not even just humans, but of tiny, tiny insects. I sat on a stage with His Holiness the Dalai Lama, and I was sitting just behind him, and he kept leaning down. And I thought, what's he doing? We're all barefoot on the stage. He's not, tying and retying his shoes. What is he doing? I mean, he literally just kept leaning down. And it turned out, I found out afterwards, that he was leaning down to pick up little caterpillars and insects that were walking on the stage, and he would hand them to one of his security people who was standing in front of the stage. So he would pick them up and hand them, and pick them up and hand them. And so we have the entire spectrum within our spiritual and religious traditions, the books, the lives of the masters, the lives of the incarnations, where you get teachings on every aspect of it. I am in every blade of grass. I am in every tree. I am in every drop of water. And stand up and fight, this is your duty. And everything in between. And to me, what that gives us as the core teaching is, you need to embody Dharma on such a deep level that you know when what is being called of you in this moment is to pick up a caterpillar and save its life, or when what is being called of you in that moment is to whack a would-be rapist on the back of his head with a baseball bat, or fight a battle, or clean a wound, or go hungry so someone else can eat. Because every one of those is an embodiment and a fulfillment of Dharma in different circumstances. And that's where the teaching is always about. Embody it, live it, find it within yourself. This is where the real Gyan Yoga is not just about read the books, memorize them, be able to recite them. But read the books, digest them, live them, breathe them, eat them, make them yours. So that you know whether what this moment is calling for is a battle or to save a caterpillar. Because only our own internal guide, what Pujya Swamiji calls our own internal GPS, only that can tell us. And so that's the only way to know. I see another question there. I know you have more, but I also realize we started late tonight, and so we're running late. I want to conclude here for now, but I'm happy to begin tomorrow by taking back up this subject, because it's a very deep subject. It's a subject that can take us a lot of places, and I'm happy to go all of those places. So let's take this up tomorrow. Again, Dharma.
It's a very small question, which is very important. At which point of time a person should understand that he or she has 100% control on them?
when at the end of every day, you sit quietly with yourself, with God, whatever that means for you, and there is nothing about the day, what you thought, what you spoke, what you did, that you wish you had done differently. If you can string together enough days like that in a row without being under total delusion, right? I mean, we want to make sure that we're not just dealing with, pathological narcissism or something, but if we're assuming that we're not, if you can string together enough days like that in a row, then I think you could be confident that you've got control over yourself.